Hey, this is the national treasure, Nick Aldis, and you're listening to the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. It is Wednesday, November 11th, and we have a very special guest on this week joining us to talk about AEW Full Gear. It is world-renowned author and blogger Scott Keith. Scott, how are you today?
I'm doing good, thanks, Joe. How are you guys doing up there?
We're doing okay. I heard there was some snowfall up in your area recently. Is that true?
Yeah, I've been digging myself out here for the past couple of days. I think we're at 37 feet now. I'm not quite sure.
No.
Maybe only 35. I don't know. I don't want to exaggerate or anything like that, but it's been pretty cold here.
Gosh, that's brutal. Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone's kind of inside anyway, a lot with the pandemic going on. But you know what? It's more time to watch wrestling and talk wrestling, right? So nothing.
That's true. Yeah.
That. So this past weekend we had AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view. I think there's 8 matches on the main card and a pre-show match, and we know everyone can find your reviews over at blogofdoom.com, as well as a lot of other cool articles, and I know you answer some questions every day, and it's just really a great resource for all sorts of wrestling knowledge and interesting stuff. I've probably learned like 75% of my wrestling knowledge from you and the different sites you've worked on over the years. So it's a great place for people to check out. And as far as Full Gear goes, the pre-show match, which I know wasn't part of the rant that you did, but the Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay match. And I guess I just wanted to get your perspective on not just the match itself, but just what I feel like is a little bit of a convoluted NWA women's title situation where we have Serena Deeb, who's contracted to AEW, defending the NWA women's title against Allison Kay, who recently left the NWA. I'm probably missing this all up, and so to me it's just a little confusing. I'm sure the match itself was fine, but like, what do you make of this whole NWA, AEW type, I guess, arrangement that they may have going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really weird situation, isn't it? Like who knows what Thunder Rosa's got going on now too? When she was really closely associated with the NWA, and now she's like putting Sharpie markers on her ass and figuring out her options from there, apparently. But like, yeah, there's a lot of good talent that the NWA had that they can bring over, especially on the women's side there. I'm assuming that Allison Kay must be getting ready to sign with AEW if they're putting her kind of in a semi-featured role like that. But like, I still don't know what Billy Corgan even has going on as far as the future of the NWA is. I mean, like, he's putting out all these tweets about how he's determined to keep it going and exploring options and that kind of thing, but at the same time is releasing all of his talent to go elsewhere. So it's kind of a weird mixed message that's kind of happening from there. So yeah, it's very, very much up in the air at the moment here. And I don't know. I mean, it's good for these women, especially like Serena Deeb, who definitely deserves another shot at making a name for herself in the big time, I think. And I think she's done pretty well with it so far. Definitely, like Allison Kay and Thunder Rosa both deserve a shot at it too. So I hope for the best for them. But yeah, like yourself, I have no understanding of what the deal is or what anybody hopes to gain out of it from the NWA side. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what for me too. Just that whole, even we saw recently, I think James Storm had left, and I saw he appeared on Impact or something last night. Not that I watch Impact, but I heard about that. I think he dropped the NWA tag titles recently. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the NWA, but I guess any sort of exposure they can get on weekly television is probably a good thing for them for whenever they may decide to return. So, but the opener proper for the main card pay-per-view was the finals of the World Title Eliminator Tournament with Omega and Hangman Page, right? So everyone knows who follows the backstory here. They used to be a tag team. There's been kind of subtle teases along the way over the course of the year about whether it's going to be Omega or Page who turns on the other, and it seems like it's Omega more lately. I feel like this match was maybe the first in what will probably be more matches of them in the future. I saw you went, I think, about 3.5 stars on it for the opener. It seemed like it was worked at a pretty quick pace. What did you take away from this as far as just like the result and what will go on from here between these guys and the Elite?
I definitely feel like I underrated it. I think actually it's more viably, having watched it again, I think I was more like a 4.25 is where I was sitting at. It really was a hell of a match. It's I don't know. I think it was the expectations might have been even so high for it that I kind of underrated it as a result of that. But yeah, they put on a hell of a match, and yeah, I think they're definitely playing the long game now with this thing. I mean, I think it is ultimately going to lead to Kenny winning the title, and then eventually Hangman does get it, and they reconcile. But they're doing a great job of making the fans really want to see it. Like before, when they were a tag team, they were kind of thrown together as a tag team, and people were like, "Oh well, you're a pair of singles wrestlers as a tag team." And now that they've done the split, now that you get the kind of the opposite reaction from the fan base, which is what they wanted all along, which is basically saying, the fans really want to see these two get back together as a tag team again, and they want to see them succeed and the Elite get together as baby faces. So it's been really effective in that regard, and yeah, I'm really glad that they're doing it kind of as a long-term storyline rather than just throwing it out and blowing it off in one shot. And I mean, really, it was the right result. Like Hangman Page is currently in the down phase of his character arc right now. He has to lose the big match so that he can hit rock bottom and then pull himself up and start winning and eventually, like I say, pay it off and get the big win over Kenny so that they can get back together again. And people might say it's a tad predictable, but that's totally fine because that's how wrestling works, is give the people what they want in the end.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously long-term storytelling is not something that we always get these days in some of the other promotions, and I think it's definitely very interesting to follow and the story arc and how it'll play out from here. There's a lot of different directions they can go. Do you think Omega is going to be the guy to take the title off of Moxley next?
Yeah, I think the next show isn't until like February as far as pay-per-view goes. I don't know if they move it before then, but I really think that, yeah, I think it's time to, well, I guess we'll discuss when we get to the end of the show, but yeah, I think it's time to move it off of Moxley. He's done some great stuff, and actually for Inside the Ropes magazine, I actually voted for him for top wrestler of the year, in fact, for the awards that they're doing on there. But even so, he's had a great year, but it's come to the point where he's been doing the same main event kind of over and over again, and Omega's long overdue for a shot at the top spot in the company, I think, for that. And it's time to put him in there and see if he can run with it.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, we'll get a little bit more into that when we get to the Moxley-Kingston match here at the end. The next match on the card was John Silver versus Orange Cassidy. And the first, I guess, real big singles opportunity for John Silver in AEW. Cassidy coming off the feud with Jericho and I guess what amounted to a push for him as a singles on television. The match itself, I know you went 3.25 star. I mean, I think these guys have worked together before on the indies. What's your sense of how the overall push for Orange Cassidy went? Like, obviously he won 2 out of 3 from Jericho, but then I think he lost a couple of matches on TV for the TNT Championship. Do you feel like his push has been effective, or have they kind of maybe cut his legs off a little bit? Or I guess I'm not really sure. Like, watching it, I'm not sure. Like, I kind of feel like having him beat Jericho to then lose a few matches on TV, and maybe this was a way to try to heat him back up again. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on his current status?
Yeah, I think it's too much Orange. Honestly, like he's a character right now who's better served being out of the ring, just hanging out with the best friends, and they're just I don't know, they kind of overexposed it. It's the main problem, of course, right now is that there's no crowds, and it's a character that doesn't really work the best when there isn't a crowd to support it. And yeah, that's kind of the thing. If you're just putting him in there as a regular wrestler, he doesn't really work great as a character as a regular wrestler. He's not like a top level wrestler, so it's kind of a hard position. So he just kind of comes off as a mid carder in those kinds of situations. So it's I definitely it's a thing where less is more. That being said, it was a really good match. I really enjoyed it against John Silver, and John Silver is just kind of overachieving right now, I think, in the position that he's been in. Like, he was a jobber who was a very underneath guy and put in a comedy role in the Dark Order, and he's been hitting out of the park. And there's been lots of anecdotes about people who were there live at the shows in Jacksonville who basically say that if there was a full crowd, that John Silver would just be like crazy over right now.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, he definitely has carved himself out. Like, I know him and Alex Reynolds have had a team, over the years, and they started out as a team, obviously, here in AEW, and But Silver seems like he has a lot of personality. Not that Reynolds doesn't, but Silver seems to stand out, I guess, in terms of that team. And they can probably do something with him. I don't know if they'll do something with him and Brody. Lee, they seem to kind of been teasing maybe some, Brody kind of bullying him around a little bit. So maybe they'll feature him a little bit more on TV especially if he's getting over with the live crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. It's apparently he's all over being the elite, doing some stuff with the Dark Order there that's really effective. Which reminds me, there was somebody was joking on Twitter about the being elite thing after they announced the video game, which is like, you can play as the Young Bucks, but to get the full storyline, you have to go out and play an entirely unrelated video game to the first one. But that's that's kind of like what it feels like with being the elite, though, right? Like where they do all this stuff to do all this character work with guys like John Silver, and then you never see any of it. So it's kind of an odd choice on their part. I mean, it's something that one of the main things that people have kind of complained about with AEW from the start, which is assuming everybody is watching all of the stuff on YouTube and Twitter and all the case. And that is definitely not the case, because I can't sit through 3 hours of AEW Dark every week. That's for sure.
I'm totally with you. I mean, my co-host Mikey, he loves Dark and he'll watch it every week, but I've tried it a couple of times, and as much as I enjoy AEW, it's like you said, 2 to 3 hours or 15 matches of mostly squashes. So if they do some character development there, and like you said, being the elite, I don't know if it would hurt them to maybe show some clips from being the elite on Dynamite or something. Maybe even if you're going to try to promote it in such a way where people need to go watch it, like maybe show like a minute or two or something on Dynamite each week. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. That's the thing that's always mystified me with it, is like they have all this stuff on it, and you never see about it on the main show. It's such a weird creative decision in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to me. It's something that and like you said, I've heard that elsewhere as well, where people are kind of like, you got to somehow marry the two so that your regular viewers on TV can catch all that stuff. So, but I guess we'll see if they make that adjustment in year 2 of Dynamite. But
yeah, exactly.
Speaking of stuff, the TNT Championship now, Cody Rhodes defending against Darby Allin, and I think the long term on this, right, was like they played it up in the video package of Darby kind of coming close to beating Cody in previous matches. So
yeah,
I do think that it made sense, right, to put the title on Darby here. At least I felt that way, and I was happy to see.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To see Darby win. The match, I think it looked like you enjoyed it as a 4-star match. I know sometimes Cody matches can either be kind of really good with their storytelling, and sometimes they could be a little bland. But this one, it seemed like fell more on the side of good storytelling, and it got a good pop from the fans at the end.
Oh yeah, for sure. Darby Allin, he was put in a position where he had to bring it big time, and he did. Like, Cody is nicknamed the 3-star general, which is something that he even brought up himself, right? But they did a hell of a job, I thought, with that match. It was into it, and I really like the finish too. Like they're exchanging cradles, like they do in the, usually get the guys trade roll-ups, and it's just for a couple of near falls. But in this case, that it ended the match. It was a nice surprise, and just a good way to kick off the title reign. And I really like, Cody made sure to, even though he was kind of playing heel through the match, he gave Darby the belt and put him over big time afterwards. So good on Cody and good on both of them.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, Cody kind of stayed on the babyface side after the match when Taz and his stable with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks came out, and then I thought it was good to see. I know they've been also trying to feature or play up the storyline with Will Hobbs as well, and if he's going to accept the invite from Team Taz, and it was good to see him make an appearance at the end. I think to save Darby. I like to see them promote newer guys that maybe not just guys that people have seen on WWE, or for like Will Hobbs, to me, was someone I didn't really know much about him until I saw him on AEW. So he's kind of like seeing him from the very beginning and evolve a little bit more. I think it's kind of cool to see somebody like him get featured on television a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing is they had success with featuring somebody like Jon Moxley from WWE because he was already a world champion and he was still a guy in his prime. But yeah, they can't fall into the trap of bringing in all the loser guys like your Matt Cordonas on a regular basis and making them into the featured players of the show, because then you're just going to turn into AEW Impact basically.
Right.
And, What's Rusev doing in the Impact Zone?
Yeah,
That kind of thing, right?
the TNA playbook, I guess. Yeah, we don't want to.
Exactly.
We don't want to get into that. So
Don't want too many plays out of that one. That's right.
no. So the AEW women's title match, Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose. I don't really know. I got myself kind of confused about this match too because I thought they were building to a rematch between Shida and Thunder Rosa, and I don't know if that just kind of changed course, or maybe that was never the intent all along. But this match kind of seemed to get put together maybe in the last like 2 or 3 weeks before the pay-per-view. I didn't think there was a lot of build. It was more just based off of their past match or matches. I know you gave the match 2 stars. I think that this match was not as good as the last pay-per-view one that they had for sure, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not. It dragged a little bit. Cody was a little bit defensive about it on Twitter with the build-up where people criticizing the pretty sparse build for it, and he was like, "Oh, they don't, they don't all have to be Shakespeare." But I don't know. There just wasn't very much to it. I think really we're just all waiting for Dr. Britt Baker to get that title now. At this point, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't put it on her already because she's clearly the biggest star of the division. But I don't know if it has to do with them waiting to find out, what's going on with their various NWA women and seeing who shakes down and signs a contract and where everything lands there or what's about it. But I know, yeah, it was a weird one. I mean, we've already seen the match before. It was too long. I thought they missed the peak of the finish by a couple of minutes, especially when Sheeta hit her with the Falcon Arrow off the middle rope there, and then went to give her the big knee to finish it. It's like, well, that should have been the ending, but then Vicky got involved, and it kept going for a little longer, and it's just I just felt like I've seen it. It's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, and completely agree with you on Britt Baker as well. I mean, she's been probably, I think the most entertaining women's wrestler on AEW from my point of view. And, like you mentioned earlier, the video game release yesterday or the event, she was there, right? She was there representing them as someone as like a face of the company along with Cody and Kenny. And, I think she seems to be the right person to put it on. So maybe that's the direction we're finally going to get to, hopefully coming up here on, the future weeks of Dynamite. But speaking of match builds that not everybody seem to enjoy. The Young Bucks and FTR had their long-awaited match for the AEW Tag Team Championships. And the match was great. I know you gave it 4 3/4 stars. The match I thought was awesome, and we'll talk about the finish and the story and all that stuff too. But I think the build to it was a little bit strange. I know a lot of people were commenting about how the Bucks were like kind of heels for a month, and then I'm not sure if they were like, I don't know if I guess they're baby faces still, but it was kind of confusing. And then they really the last 2 weeks they made the match about Matt Jackson's knee and his leg injury, and I think that really plays obviously into FTR's style and everything like that. But I guess the build up to itself on television, how did you feel about that? Like how the Young Bucks were portrayed, and how that was all kind of shown on television leading into this heavily anticipated match.
Yeah, it was really weird. That I didn't understand the build-up at all, honestly. Yeah, I didn't know if they were supposed to be, heels or baby faces. And all the stuff with the super kicking Tony Schiavone was total. It was set up to be a total heel move, but and then last week they suddenly shifted back to putting sympathy on the Young Bucks again. So it was, I don't know, it was a very confusing thing. But I mean, the match was awesome, so it's hard to fault it too much in the end, really. And now they're solidly babyface again. So I mean, as long as we know where we're going from here, I guess that's the important thing. But yeah, I think I might have even underrated that one a little bit. I'm pretty sure I probably should have given that one full 5 stars. Honestly, I mean, it was just an amazing piece of tag team business. Like the point in the middle where they were hitting all the classic tag team finishers on each other and that kind of stuff. I mean, God, it was just like a love letter to tag team wrestling. Whereas WWE has the tag team champions come out and literally swap belts on an episode of the show, and nobody cares, right? So
oh God, that's awful. That is tough. In comparison, for this match, which I like you said was just great from start to finish, compared to the Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman from earlier in the year, I know it's hard to there's different teams, it's hard to compare. But did you have one that you liked better than the other?
Yeah, I still like the one with Bucks and against Hangman and Kenny. There was just some sequences in there where just like the Bucks managed to turn themselves heel during the course of the match, and I was literally jumping off the couch and yelling and at the Bucks because they're just being such assholes. And when they finally got their comeuppance at the end, it was tremendous, I thought. So that the FTR match didn't quite have the same emotional investment that it had in the previous one with Hangman. But it was still an amazing match, I thought.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, I agree. The storyline, I think, for the first one was better than this one, and that probably gives it the advantage overall. But so the Elite Deletion match, which is, of course, everyone's favorite cinematic wrestling, that's all the rage in 2020. Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. All the kids are talking about it.
All the kids are talking about it, yeah.
Now, this match, again, it's a mix of different things. There's comedy spots. There's kind of serious spots. They played off some of the injuries that Matt had. I guess my thing just going into the match was I expected, even though it's a cinematic thing and it was at the Hardy compound and all of that, I was still expecting Sammy to win, just because I feel like the whole goal of this program should be to get Sammy Guevara elevated and kind of make him more of a serious threat on television. And Matt won the last match where he ended up getting the concussion, I think putting Sammy through a table and whatever ended up happening there. So were you surprised to see Matt win here? I mean, in previews that I saw, some people were still picking Matt, I guess, just because it was his style of the Elite Deletion, all the other things that he's done over the years. Were you surprised that Matt got the victory in this match?
No, not really. I mean, it did make sense because Matt, took the chair off the face and everything. So I mean, it was more about building to him getting his revenge against Sammy. I thought I thought this was one of the instances where somebody losing kind of helps them out towards the end goal. Mm-hmm. It's obvious based on the last episode of Dynamite, for example, that Sammy Guevara is going to be a friggin' amazing top level babyface at some point, probably pretty soon now. So I think something like this, it helps put sympathy on him, and it's also going to, Dynamite doesn't start until another hour and a half now, but I think we might possibly see some blowback from the inner circle against Sammy for losing the match, and that might again start to build towards the babyface turn that has to be coming soon, because Sammy's just an amazing babyface with the moves that he does, and I think that's what they were shooting for with the Elite Deletion match, honestly, and I think it was pretty effective for that. I couldn't even give it a rating, honestly, because I don't know, I got what I needed out of it, to be honest. I mean, me and my opinions of cinematic wrestling are not the best these days, but I thought it was a fun match that got really dark at the end, surprisingly dark, I have to say, considering where they went with it, and it was enjoyable enough for me. But I think that is the lesson here at the end, though, is that Sammy Guevara is bound for really great things. Yeah, I mean,
like you said, he's some of the stuff that he's capable of doing that he showed last week on TV in the tag match, and just and other stuff. He's I mean, it seems like that's the direction that they're going to go. And I guess speaking of the inner circle, the Chris Jericho and MJF match, which I guess again this is another one of those matches where people were a little divided on the build up to it. I think I guess more specifically about the dinner debonair, right? I think that was a little bit more the most polarizing portion of the build up. But ultimately, this match, where if MJF won, he would get to join the inner circle, which he ended up winning, and now he'll be a part of that. You wonder, like, there's a lot of different possibilities there. If it's going to be maybe Jericho and Sammy split off into baby faces, and who aligns with who. The match itself between MJF and Jericho, I know you went 2 stars. It was like about a little over 16 minutes long. Heel versus heel match, right? Crowd probably a little bit worn out from some of the earlier matches. Did that play a role kind of into the rating? I mean, I don't want to get into Jericho's age too much. I know he's just turned 50, so I think his matches are a little slower paced now as well. So I don't know if it's a combination of all those things that kind of leads it to kind of being. Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Elite Deletion kind of burned out the crowd a little bit as well. It was a tough one to follow because there was all this wild and crazy stuff happening in the Deletion match, and then kind of had to follow it with a more character based thing. And I mean, it's not necessarily that's bad. It's another one where it went a little bit long for me. It's hard to call. I wouldn't say it's a bad match. Like, I could technically see what Jericho was trying to do out there, but like I say, he's 50 years old now. It's just there's only so much that he can do now at this point. and it's really hard for him to continue wrestling that kind of style of match with somebody like you could see that MGF had to, visibly slow down his own style in order to let Jericho keep up with him, sort of thing. But Jericho's another one, obviously, where he's going to turn soon, and because people desperately want to cheer for him and sing along with his song and everything like that. And that was kind of a way to do it. And the finish of the match was awesome. I thought it was hilarious. Like they're trying to out heel each other, and MJF ended up winning that particular battle because he's the younger and smarter heel. Jericho is, and that's obviously another reason why Jericho will probably be turning pretty soon.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a point, I think, just before this feud started, or maybe the very beginning of it, where Jericho and Jake Hager were, they became a tag team, and they were going to go after the tag titles, and I guess maybe that kind of got put on the shelf for this feud. I don't know if they'll go back to that, but Jericho in a role like that, or even if they'll have him team with Sammy in the future, I think which they've done in the past as well, is not a bad role for him, especially if he's going to be a babyface. How quickly do you think they'll pull the trigger on MJF kind of taking control? Like, do you think that's going to be something that happens like tonight on Dynamite, or they're going to spread that out over the next couple of months and do like a slow build to eventually the inner circle kind of splitting?
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely going to be a slow build one. They still have weeks and weeks of comedy that they can mine from MJF and Wardlow infiltrating the group, and sowing dissent from within with the guys like Santana and Ortiz, and they've got there's a lot of material that they can be mined out of that one too. And that's another one too, where we know where everybody wants it to go is Jericho leaving the group and turning babyface so the fans can cheer him, right? And you gotta build up to him to do it first. You can't just Vince Russo this and do it in week one, right? Like, we know where it's going, but that's okay because that's good destination. Although the whole thing with Jericho and Hager's team suddenly disappearing was kind of a weird one, but I don't know if maybe that had something to do with Hager suddenly getting the fight for Bellator out of nowhere, possibly. But yeah, that was kind of an odd change of direction for them as well, I thought. I thought that it was really soon to be even going to the Jericho MJF match in the first place. Like, I thought they would still be in the phase of doing the things like Le Dinner Debonair and that sort of thing before jumping right to the match and having it happen there, because there's all kinds of other ways that they could have done to stretch it out before they even got there. Like, everything was still working. They didn't really need to get there right away, but they did, and that's great, and I'm sure they have a plan for it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I think it was actually like the week after they did the Dinner Debonair where they announced that, like, okay, by the way, we're going to face each other at the pay-per-view, and then if you win, you're in. It kind of took a different turn where I thought maybe they would do a match, maybe something along the lines of the tag match they did on Dynamite, where you can see the interaction of MJF with the Inner Circle and then eventually build up to it later. But like you said, I guess they're going where they want to go with it. We know what the end game's going to be, and it'll be, it should be great when it happens. So we'll look for that to play out on Dynamite. And then we get the main event, of course, which is Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in an I Quit match for the AEW World Title. Eddie Kingston is, and again, everyone's kind of saying the same thing, so I'm not going to probably say anything that's groundbreaking here, right? People who follow indie wrestling and know who Eddie Kingston is and the type of performer that he is. He worked in Chikara, he worked in Evolve, and all these other places. I think he had some time in TNA and in ROH. So he's really worked almost everywhere except for, I guess, mainstream WWE, and now finally he's on AEW, and he's a great promo. This match, like you're saying, it's Jon Moxley type match, right? There was brawling, there were weapons, there was violence, but there also was an emotional storyline invested in it because of their history, and Eddie passing out to the Bulldog choke in their previous match, so they made it an I Quit match. I know you went 3.5 stars on the match itself. Did you feel like it was, I guess it's a typical Moxley type, brawl type match. There wasn't really much, I guess, in terms of innovative spots really in the match itself, stuff that we've seen before, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we know all the beats, right? Like, I will say it was worked a lot differently than a lot of I Quit matches. Like, there was no microphone involved and no stopping to ask the guy, do you quit and all that kind of stuff, right? They just went out and they had the fight and the barbed wire got involved. But, it's like, at a certain point, the thumbtacks are going to get involved there. And, the pouring rubbing alcohol on it, that was certainly a different twist. We haven't seen that before. So I will say that was super innovative. But I mean, like, it's we knew how it was going to end. It was going to end with putting back in the choke, and probably the barbed wire was going to be involved in this case because it's the sick finish and everything like that. So I didn't dislike the match. Like I said, I thought it was good. I thought it was a typical Moxley match. I would like to see Moxley doing kind of branching out and doing more different stuff, which I think is kind of the point of the Kenny Omega feud as well. That's about to be built up because they had the first match was the Hellacious Brawl. That was Moxley's match, and then now Kenny wants the straight wrestling match. So we're going to see if Moxley can meet him in that regard, and then of course, and I'm sure then that'll mean that Kenny will win his own style of match to even up the series. So everything shakes down, everything makes sense. Eddie Kingston was tremendous, though. I mean, for a thrown together feud, what felt like a thrown together feud, he did a fantastic job, which is interesting because he was in NWA Power before that, and he was definitely not portrayed at a level that was anything close to that sort of thing. Like, he was basically a manager, right? Like, he was a mouthpiece for various people. And, it was, I didn't have a lot of experience seeing Eddie Kingston before that on the indies and that kind of thing. So it was kind of neat to see him in AEW really like kind of branching out and learning all the stuff about him and what a great talent that he really was. I mean, we knew he could talk, but he can work as well. I do wish they had spent more time building up aspects of his character, especially in the ring. Like for example, they didn't spend a lot of time building up that the spinning back fist was his finisher. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't get a lot of wins over top level guys, so we could figure out what his big moves were and how he traditionally won matches and that sort of thing. So that was kind of a problem. Honestly, if they were going in this direction for the pay-per-view, I wouldn't have done that thrown together match when Lance Archer had COVID. I would have gone a different way with it. Like let Moxley fight Butcher or Blade or something like that again, or Penta or Phoenix or something like that, and then have it build up to Eddie Kingston getting the shot then. But yeah, I mean, like the promo that they did together on Dynamite before the pay-per-view was like an all-timer. Like that was just absolutely fantastic stuff on both of their parts. Like breaking the promise to your mother and all that stuff. Like just that's some good wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's with building up Kingston. I think that was one of the things. I don't know if it was because, like you said, it was a thrown together type thing. But the only win I really remember him getting on Dynamite was over Matt Sydal, and I think he choked him out and forced him to give up just because of the trying to build into the I Quit stipulation. But it would have been, I think, most of his other wins probably occurred on AEW Dark or he's been more of a mouthpiece for the family that he has going there. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they continue to feature him on Dynamite some more. I think he's someone that people can really get behind, and and I know with Moxley and heading into Moxley and Omega soon or in the next few months. Again, people have different varying opinions on the AEW ranking system and how they figure that stuff out. I know somebody pointed out that like no one in the top 5 was actually in the World Title Eliminator tournament at one point, something along those lines. But
I know. And I mean, hey, they called it out on Dynamite too, right? When Ricky Starks came out and said, "Hey, I've won all these matches and I'm not even ranked in the top 10," and he's got a point. Ricky Starks is awesome. He should be a featured player on there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something maybe they can try to work on a little bit more. But I think the thing that I think, at least the fact that they keep the records makes me like the fact that Moxley, I think they said he's like 20-0 or 21-0 or whatever he is now, like this year. At least like right, like he's not been defeated in AEW the entire year, and definitely since he's been the champion. To me, it makes it more impactful when someone like Omega will eventually beat him, as opposed to maybe what you see on. Not necessarily as much anymore with Raw and SmackDown, but previously stuff we've seen, right, where like a champion was like Seth Rollins or something like that, and he was constantly doing jobs, and it's like, all right, well, I just saw the champion get beat like 4 times, so what's the?
Oh yeah, I mean, and like not to slag the work of Roman Reigns and Jey Uso at all, because it's been an awesome program, but like that's how they determine contenders is they have Jey Uso come back from injury and win a random 4-person schmoz match and then get a title shot. It's like, well, why should I give a shit if Roman Reigns beats him then? Like build him up as a contender first, then it'll be more meaningful when we go to a Hell in a Cell match where they're they're fighting for the title, you know. So like that was a major problem that I had there, and it's a thing that they do often where, you know, it's NXT's been really bad for it as well recently.
Yeah.
You know, where they don't have any kind of meaningful ranking system, and it's just like, well, we're going to have these multi-man matches to build up to another multi-man match where the winner gets a title shot at a guy in a, you know, multi-man ladder match, and blah blah blah, and it's just a never-ending rabbit hole of just, you know, booking in circles basically.
Yep, and they all involve Dexter Lumis, right? So
They all involve Dexter Lumis, yes, exactly.
so that's
And
Full Gear. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and Timothy Thatcher manages to lose in every one too. For some
Yeah, that poor guy, and Cameron Grimes. Oh gosh, we can go on and on. But yeah, so that was Full Gear. I thought, you know, great show overall. I think, right? Had to, you know, recommend it, I think, for everybody. And other thing I wanted to ask you outside of Full Gear specifically is I don't know what to make of any of this, but this is, you know, Tony Khan and his tweets, you know, coming out today and saying that the balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight on Dynamite and the surprises ahead. Do you think there's anything to that, or is it just kind of him trying to get people to tune into the show? Or, you know, do you think they have some surprises up their sleeve or things that may happen tonight? I know there was talk about Sting maybe showing up at a pay-per-view. I don't know what they're thinking, but do you think there's any grounds for this, or is he just trying to pull in viewers?
Sting's available. I mean, he's and God knows that, you know, they worship at the feet of Jim Crocker Promotions in AEW. So, I mean, hey, who doesn't, right? So yeah. I mean. And you know they would treat Sting better than WWE did, but I mean, I don't know what they would do with him exactly. But hey, I'd be down for it. Yeah, they can bring him in again. You know, the constant rumor has always been CM Punk, but I don't know if he has much to offer to the wrestling business at this point now. But I mean, he has certainly burned his bridges with WWE on Twitter by going after Linda McMahon, right? But
yeah,
hey, but I mean, you know, I you know, good on them. You know, if nothing else, make Vince McMahon nervous. So that's always a good thing. And you know, they need a better main event than Penta El Zero versus Phoenix, I think, to draw in viewers. So maybe they got something big planned. But yeah, no, I'd be down with Sting, absolutely. I like I said, I think especially like somebody like Cody would know exactly how he would want to use Sting, and he would, you know, pay him very much respect on the show. And it definitely wouldn't be a thing where they let him get in there and take a buckle bomb from somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, just when they had the pay-per-view last year, that I think it was All Out, where Jericho, you know, won the title against Page, right, the inaugural title, and they had Bret Hart come out. Like I had no idea. I don't know if anybody knew that was going to happen, and that was pretty cool. I think just to see Bret in another promotion, and you know, he pretty much does and says whatever he wants to. So you know, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do, you know, this evening and going forward, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. Scott, we thanks so much again for taking the time to review this show with us. It's always a great honor for us to have you on. Blogofdoom.com is where we can find all of your rants and other things that you post on there. Twitter, it's at Scott Keith, if I'm not mistaken.
At RSPW FAQ.
At RSPW FAQ. All right, thanks for that.
Yeah, and I'm also writing now for Inside the Ropes magazine in the UK. They are available to ship to the US, but it's mostly their subscription is in the UK right now, and that's been pretty awesome working with Finn Martin and the people formerly of Power Slam magazine. So great honor there. A lot of great talent working there, like myself, Justin Henry, Keith Elliott Greenberg is on there. The James Dixon is the managing editor there. So some great folks working there, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely look forward to checking that out, Inside the Ropes magazine. Thanks again, Scott, for coming on with us. We really, really appreciate it. Enjoy Dynamite and all the other wrestling going on in the world today, and hope you can stay warm in the snow, man.
I'm doing my best. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye now.